good morning. Welcome to Tosca training. In today's session, we'll see how to identify the elements in Tosca. Okay, so I've opened my Tosca. I'm navigating to a project, demo shop. And this is my demo application which I'll be using for testing. So this application is used to purchase books, computers, electronics, apparels online. So let me open this Tosca. Tosca is loaded. So by default, I've shown you how to scan registration module. So let me try to show it for login first. Okay. So basically, this is my login screen. I need to identify the elements on the login screen. Okay. So what are the elements which are available on the login screen? I have something called as email ID, password, remember password, forgot password, and login button. So what is the default option to identify the elements? The default option for identifying the elements on the page is identify by properties. So what do you mean by identify by properties? Identifying controls by their properties is the default identification method in Tosca scan. The identify by properties window contains all the technical information and properties of the selected control. So let me open, see, this is my control. Let me scan it once again. So right click, scan application, desktop scan. From the list of active applications, I am selecting Tricentis Tosca. See, this is my Tricentis Tosca. I've selected it. Now, it's taking some time to load the controls. So if it is taking more time, what we need to do is we need to start this service. Let me scan the module once again. Scan application, desktop scan. So these are the list of available windows. It will load all the properties. So from this, what I have to do is, by default way of scanning is, look at here, the default way of scanning is the identify by properties window. How to get that? I just click on this identify image. See, you have an option called as identify by properties. I'm selecting identify by properties and I'm minimizing this. Okay, I'm minimizing this so that I can easily select the controls. So this is the first control I have selected, this is the second control I have selected, this is the third control, and this is the fourth control. I have selected two text boxes, one checkbox and one radio button. If you want to see it, you can see this. See, so this email is identified by using by properties method. Okay, so it is having all these properties. These are unique properties. Time being, I'm identifying the email by using the ID property. Similarly, password is also identified using the ID property. Remember me is also using identity property. Login is also used. Login is identified by using value and tag properties. So what does it mean is, the so you will be using the available technical information. So identify a properties window contains all the technical information, the properties of the selected control. This is the identification by window. Okay, so if the selected property is not uniquely identifiable, then we need to use some additional properties, okay, to identify the control and use for, or use a different identification method. See, for if you look at here, for the first three controls, that is email, password, and remember me, I am uniquely identifying it using the ID property. Okay, so email is having an ID property called as email. Similarly, password and remember me. But when it comes to login property, there is no ID control. Okay, there is no identity control. So in that case, if the control is not uniquely identified, you have to select additional properties. So what are the additional properties which I have? System will automatically do it. You need not worry. If system is not able to do, then you have to select the available technical properties. So what are the additional available technical properties? One is tag and one is input. So if you are not able to identify a control uniquely, you have to additionally select some more properties, or you have to select a different method for identification of the element. Sometimes by default it will not load all the technical properties. Okay, it will load only the important technical properties. If you want to see all the available technical properties, there is an option called as load all properties. Look at here. To load all technical properties for the selected control, click on load all properties button. See, now if you look at here, this will show you all the properties available for that particular control. See, for login, these are all the technical properties. Okay, so this is how you can work on identify by property. You can identify an element using identify by property method. Okay, so the next thing what we have to do is we need to use a concept called as identify by anchor. Okay, so what do you mean by identify by anchor? Suppose there is no ID property or no property which can uniquely identify that particular element. In that case, I have to use anchor property. Look at here, let me show you the explanation. Identify by anchor means identify the object or element uniquely by taking the reference of other uniquely identified object. Okay, select the scan require test object by using Tosca scan. In the advanced view, click on identify by button and select anchor from the drop down window. So let's do till here. Okay, right click, scan application, desktop scan. It will display the list of active applications. From this I'm selecting. Okay, now if you look at here, there is something called as two links are there. There is a link called as books. Okay, this is uniquely identified, and there is also a thing called as books. Here the books is not uniquely identified. Okay, why it is not uniquely identified? Because it is not having any ID property. So this item is not unique. Select item is not unique is what it's saying. So what we have to do is you have to go by anchor. Okay, now whenever I'm using by anchor, right, what anchor tag will show is you have to take the reference of other uniquely identified element or object. So now what happens, in the advanced tab, click on the advanced tab. So we need to select the control which you should be identified. By default, system will automatically search for the possible anchor. You look at here, if you look at this window, so it will automatically search. If it is not there, you have to do it manually. So you have to pick the control now which is uniquely identified on the screen. For that purpose, I'll be using this. See, I'll be clicking on select on screen, and my books was uniquely identified, right? This books, the first books was uniquely identified. So I will click here, and I will select it. Okay, let me do it once again. Okay, I've selected books, and go to let me do it once again. Close it. Scan application, desktop scan. So this is the page which I have to scan. So if you look at here, books is not uniquely identified. So I need to make it uniquely identified. Identify by anchor. Okay. What it says is drag the control on this panel to use as an anchor To identify by anchor, or click on select on screen button to select the anchor control on the screen. So one way what you can do is you can drag this. Okay, you can drag this control. Or I can use select on screen. It's not working. One second. Yeah, see, I have identified it. See, I have to select the control and click on select on screen. So it will display the list of all the available properties. Let me do it once again for you as a reference. So right click, scan application, desktop scan. Select this window, active application. Now you need to identify books. By default, books is not uniquely identified. So select on screen, sorry, not select on screen. So you have to use identify by anchor. So what it is saying is drag the control which is uniquely identified. So for example, I have, let's say I have this computer books is which is uniquely identified. Yes, select it. Okay, wait, check it. So I'll take this books control, select on screen, books. Okay, select on screen, and let me take one thing, condensed mode. So this control is uniquely available, right? I am selecting it now. In this way I can uniquely identify this control once. Okay, so this is the anchor tag which I am using. This control is uniquely identified. The moment you select and release it, it will load. It will load that property, and now books is uniquely identified. Look at here. So it has taken the properties of the control which is uniquely identified, and it is acting as a reference. So there are different ways of identifying. See, what was my anchor? If I select the anchor was subscribe button. So there is an algorithm called as how you are going to identify this by using auto, shortest path, or coordinates. Okay, just look at here, like select the control which should be identified. By default system will pick it. If system does not pick it, you have to do it. So manually selecting, so what you have to do is select on screen and you have to manually pick it. And look at here, there are different algorithm. It is using an algorithm for identifying the control. So in the drop down menu you will define an algorithm to be used to identify the controls by the anchor control. Okay, what are the different algorithms available is shortest path. As you know, the system searches each tree level for the control to be identified starting from the anchor control. The search starts directly beneath the control and goes from the bottom to the top of the root element. Coordinates is nothing but by using x and y coordinates. The exact position of the control can be identified in search of, yeah, the exact position of the control is identified is searched by using coordinates. Third one is shortest. If the shortest algorithm was unsuccessful, the system will switch to coordinate algorithm. Okay, either it can choose either shortest or coordinate. So if you want to remove the anchor tag, how to do? Right click, remove anchor. Now again it is not uniquely identified. So once again I have to identify it uniquely. So for identifying uniquely, select on screen, select the element and uncheck. So it will load that particular control. So this is how you can identify by anchor. Okay, and the next one we have an option called as identify by index. So whenever you are having multiple elements, okay, the next one you have this identify by index. So these options identify by index, it's if you're not able to select the control uniquely, then you have to go for this particular option. For example, let me open my application, click on books. It is showing me some list of books, right? So let me identify these two things. Scan application, desktop scan. Select the active application. Click on identify by index. Select on screen. Condense. I'm identifying this and also identifying this. So once I select on this, right? So whenever I'm going to identify by index, right? So what is the lower position of this particular control? It is the seventh. It is in the second position among 7 controls. This is how you can do it. Similarly, this is the third position. Like this, you can identify by index and click on save. This will save the module. Okay. So this is how an identify by index works. So open the scan, then scan that particular any button. Click on identify by index, and you select the required property. Okay. Let me show you once again. Right click, scan application, desktop scan. So list of active applications, select web shop. Okay. Select on screen, condense. So these two I have to identify. By default, there is no unique property which identifies the control. See, there is no unique property which identifies. There is nothing like ID or all this thing. So I'm going by identify by index, selecting the index, select the index, and click on save. So this module will be saved. The last option which we have is by image. Let me show you by image. Scan application, desktop scan. So if nothing is working, like the anchor is not working, ID properties is not working, and index is also not working, then we have to go for the last option called as image. Generally this option is not advisable because it is browser dependent. So let me select on screen, condense, select these 3 elements. So now these are not uniquely identified, so I need to go for image. I need to add that image. So what is this image? This was the image I have to uniquely identify. Okay. In this way, you would like to consider the image in the search window. Yes. Okay. So in this way, you can identify that particular control. Identify by image. So this is how the control, and now I have to identify this particular image. Okay. So you got the image property, screen resolutions, and you can identify. Let me scan once again. So this was my image. So select add the plus symbol and click on this. Okay. By using this, I am uniquely identifying it. So like this, you can identify the element by using image. Now this has been uniquely identified. Okay. So these are the different identification property. These are the different ways of identifying elements in Tosca. One is by properties, other one is by anchor, image and index. Thanks for watching the video.